Today is 2nd May 2020, 6 hours ago. Uh, the Facebook page, Presidential Communication Government of the Philippines, published the ECQ and GCQ Guidelines, and we have 37 photos updated 6 hours ago. ECQ is stand for Enhanced Community Quarantine, and GCQ General Community Quarantine Guideline started yesterday. So let's have a look at this each of the 37 slides. Let's open in full screen and I read each one. Enhanced Community Quarantine and General Community Quarantine Guidelines. Not allowed to go out. Person below 21 years old, person 60 years old and above, those with immunodeficiency, comorbidities or other health risks, pregnant women, any person who resides with the aforementioned, except when obtaining essential goods and services. Allowed to operate manufacturing and processing plants of basic food products, medicine and vitamins, medical supplies, devices and equipment, essential products, soap and detergents, diapers, hygiene products and disinfectants, provided that such establishments may operate at the maximum of 50% of their respective workforces, unless the DTI approves the temporary increase of workforce capacity. Manufacturers of medicine, medical supply, devices, and equipment are allowed to operate at full capacity. Allowed to operate delivery services transporting food, medicine, essential goods, clothing, accessories, hardware, housewares, school and office supplies, pet food and other veterinary products. Allowed to operate capital markets including but not limited to the Banco Central in Filipinas, the Securities and Exchange Commission, Philippine Stock Exchange, Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation, Philippine Securities Settlement Corporation, Philippine Depository and Trust Corporation. Allowed to operate power, energy, water, information technology, telecommunication supplies, facilities, waste disposal services, property management, building utility services. Allowed to operate energy companies, their third-party contractors, and service providers, including employees involved in electric transmission and distribution, electric power plant and line maintenance, electricity market and retail suppliers, exploration, operation, trading, and delivery of coal, oil, crude, or petroleum to produce electricity. Allowed to operate telecommunication companies, internet service providers, cable television providers, including those who perform indirect services such as technical sales and other support personnel, employee of third-party contractors doing sales, installation, maintenance, and repair works. Allowed to operate airline and aircraft maintenance employee, including pilots and crew, ship captains and crew. Allowed to operate media establishment at the maximum operational capacity of 50% of their total permanent staff complement as registered under the DOL, inclusive of reporters and other field employees as accredited by the OO. Allowed to operate construction workers accredited by the DPWH to work on quarantine and isolation facilities, health facilities, emergency works, flood control, other disaster risk reduction and rehabilitation work. Allowed to operate manufacturing companies and suppliers of construction equipment or products, worker accredited by the DOHTR to work on utility relocation works, specific limited works across 13 railway projects, replacement works for the MRT Line 3, provided that on-site or near-site accommodation and/or point-to-point shuttle services should be arranged if applicable. Allowed to operate funeral and embalming services, provided that they provide shuttling services and/or housing accommodation for their personnel and staff. Allowed to operate humanitarian assistance personnel and individual performing relief operation from civil society organization, non-government organization, United Nations humanitarian country teams, provided that they are authorized by the appropriate government agency or LGU. Allowed to go out on ECQ, pastors, priests, imams, or such other religious minister conducting necrological or funeral rites, immediate family members of the deceased from causes other than COVID-19, attending the wake or interment upon satisfactory proof of their relationship and social distances measures, veterinary clinics, security personnel. Allowed to go out on ECQ, repatriated overseas Filipinos workers in compliance with approved quarantine protocols, non-OFWS who may be required to undergo mandatory facility-based quarantine, healthcare workers and other employees from exempted establishment. A regulatory agency with jurisdiction over permitted establishments or persons are likewise tasked to issue official IFTF accreditation IDS. Bona fide IDS issued by establishments exempted from the strict home quarantine requirement shall likewise be honored by law enforcement agency. Rapid Pass System. The Rapid Pass System shall be complementary to the existing IFTF IDS issued by the member agency, which shall continue to be honored in all quarantine checkpoints. Enrollment for Rapid Pass IDS shall be voluntary and shall only cover qualified private sector entities in our person. The movement of cargo vehicles shall be unhampered. Cargo vehicles, as well as vehicles used by public utility companies, BPOs, and export-oriented establishments, shall not be subject to an ID system. Checkpoints. The PMP retains its authority to conduct inspection procedures in checkpoints only for ensuring that protocols on strict home quarantine are observed. Payrolls, government offices, and private corporations are encouraged to process payrolls online. However, for those who cannot, payroll managers and such other employees that may be required to process payroll and print payrolls shall be allowed to travel and operate covering the period of ECQ. Other exemption from the home quarantine requirement through previous IFTF resolutions or issuances by the Office of the President shall be honored. Not allowed to go out. Persons 60 years old and above are required to remain in their residences at all times, except when indispensable under the circumstances for obtaining essential goods and services or for work in permitted industry and offices. Minimum public health standards shall be complying with all time for the duration of the GCQ. Under the GCQ movement of all persons shall be limited to accessing essential goods and services and for work in the offices or industry permitted to operate. Movement for leisure purposes is not allowed. Not allowed to go out. Person below 21 years old, person 60 years old and above, those with immunodeficiency, comorbidities, or other health risks, pregnant women, any person who resides with aforementioned, except when obtaining essential goods and services. Under the GCQ, working government offices may be at full operational capacity or under such alternative work arrangement as agency may deem proper in accordance to issuances by the Civil Services Commission. Allowed to operate. Category first industry: agriculture, fishery and forestry industries, food, manufacturing and food supply chain businesses, including food retail establishments such as supermarkets, grocery stores, and food preparation establishments insofar as takeout and delivery services, food delivery services, health-related establishments, the logistics sector, information technology and telecommunication companies, the media at full operational capacity. Allowed to operate. Category second industry: mining and other manufacturing export-oriented and electronic commerce companies, as well as other delivery, repair and maintenance and housing and office services at anywhere between 50% up to full operational capacity, and without prejudice to work from home and other alternative work arrangements. Allowed to operate. Category 3 industries: financial services, BPOs, legal and accounting and auditing services, professional, scientific, technical and other non-leisure services, and other non-leisure wholesale and retail establishment at a maximum of 50% work on-site arrangement and without prejudice to work from home and other alternative work arrangement. Specific industry under each category are reflected in a separate document issued by the DTI. Under the GCQ, malls and shopping centers may open except for leisure establishments. Such establishments and services allowed to operate in malls and shopping centers may only operate at a limited capacity. Persons with age below 21 years old and those 60 years old and above may not enter malls except when obtaining essential goods and services. The DTI may issue guidelines to limit foot traffic in such establishments. Construction projects allowed during the GCQ in accordance with guidelines issued by the DPWH. Essential public and private construction products such as but not limited to sewerage, water services facilities, digital works, health facilities, priority project. Amusement, gaming and fitness establishments as well as those in the kids and the tourism industry may not operate during the GCQ. No hotel or similar establishment shall be allowed to operate except those accommodating the following. A. For areas outside Luzon, guests who have existing booking accommodation for foreigners as of May 1, 2020. B. Guests who have existing long-term bookings. C. Distressed overseas Filipino workers and stranded Filipinos or foreign nationals. D. Repatriated over Filipino workers in compliance with approved quarantine protocols. E. OFWS who may be required to undergo mandatory facility-based quarantine. And F. Healthcare workers and other employees from exempted establishments under these omnibus guidelines and the applicable memoranda from the Executive Secretary, provided that in all of the foregoing hotel operations shall be limited to the provision of basic lodging to guests. Physical classes shall be suspended for the duration of the GCQ. However, higher education institutions may hold classes through flexible learning arrangement to finish AY 2019-2020, operate an unlimited capacity to receive students' requirement, prepare and issue credentials to students. This is all subject to the guideline as may be issued by the CHED. Mass gatherings are still prohibited and highly discouraged under the GCQ. However, essential work gatherings and religious activities may continue as long as strict social distances is maintained during the entirety of the event, subject to the following: at least 2 meters distance between and among those attending, mandatory wearing of face mask, face shield, or other facial protective equipment by attendees. Road, rail, maritime, and aviation sectors of public transportation shall operate at a reduced capacity in accordance with guidelines issued by the DOTR. A strict 1 meter distance between passengers shall be observed in all public transports. Not allowed to go out. Persons 60 years old and above are required to remain in their residences at all times, except when indispensable under the circumstances for obtaining essential goods and services or for work in permitted industry and offices. All other previous guidelines on the ECQ are still in effect unless otherwise amended by the IFTF and of the President of the Philippines.